A very good morning at 9:30 a.m. Central Africa time. This is eNCA live from Johannesburg. I'm Eleni Jakos, and just recapping that top story again, all eyes on Oscar Pistorius today. The case has now been postponed until the 19th of August at the Pretoria Magistrates Court. He made a brief appearance for the first time in months. It's the first time the world has seen the Paralympian since he was granted bail in February. Prosecutors asked for more time to investigate the killing of his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp. Right, let's now cross over to eNCA reporter Karyn Maughan, who is now outside the Pretoria Magistrates Court. A short while ago, though, Karyn, you were inside the court as well. So tell us exactly what happened this morning. And as expected, it was a very short court appearance.
Well, Eleni, everything didn't quite go according to plan, certainly not for the state, because Magistrate Daniel Tulware, while he postponed the matter as they asked, questioned them very vociferously about what he said could be potentially scandalous and contemptuous conduct in terms of the media's handling of this case, saying that he was extremely worried that certain evidence being played out in the public domain could amount to Oscar Pistorius's case turning into what he described as a trial by media. Now, he didn't explicitly refer to the leaking of those police crime scene images, which of course were leaked to an international broadcaster just a few days ago, but he urged both the National Police Commissioner and the state to really put a lot of effort into interrogating the actions of officials involved in this case to make sure that this case did not amount to a trial by media. Of course, he did grant the state's request for a postponement after asking them what aspects of the investigation were still outstanding. Prosecutor Andrea Johnson declined to give those details, saying that the state had an agreement with the defense that those kind of issues had been discussed between them but would not be disclosed in a public forum. The magistrate seems satisfied with that answer, and he has postponed this case to the 19th of August.
I mean, Karyn, the fact that the magistrate said it's okay for the fact that the prosecution didn't want to reveal as to what holes there were in the investigation right now, do you get the sense that the magistrate was trying to perhaps protect the case from the media as well, given the fact that, as you've just reiterated, there is a lot of concern about the whole notion of the trial by media?
Well, the magistrate has to be seen to be interrogating the assertions of the state, and I think he was well within his rights to question what aspects of the investigation are outstanding. Remember that if a forensic report, for instance, is outstanding, that can severely delay trials, and it's often in the cases in these kind of situations where magistrates can interrogate what evidence is outstanding to look at what time spans may result in delays for this case. So he was fully within his rights, and I think he said at the end of Johnson's address, where she said that the defense had been informed of the gaps, he was satisfied that that was enough in order to protect the court's rights, but also Oscar Pistorius's rights in terms of preparing his defense.
It was interesting, Karyn Maughan wasn't there, but Andrea Johnson, of course, was there. Is there a specific reason as to why, Karyn? Do you know? I mean, obviously there's a lot of people working on this case at one time.
Well, Karyn Maughan is not required to be here today. I mean, because of this case being a mere postponement in the greater scheme of things, there wasn't a necessity for him to be here, just as there was not necessarily a necessity for Barry Roux to be here. The fact that he was sort of gives you an indication of the level of distrust that may exist between the defense and the state at this time. But Karyn Maughan not required to do so. Andrea Johnson is a very competent prosecutor, and so certainly she has the ability to carry out a postponement, which she did.
Is it true that the prosecutor Johnson, Karyn, said that there had been in some kind of discussion with the defense about the case? Could you confirm that?
Yes, that was one of the aspects that she mentioned in terms of her explanation for why it was not necessary for the state to disclose what evidence was still outstanding against Oscar Pistorius. She said that the state and the defense had been in electronic contact, of course, by email, discussing the docket, discussing what was still outstanding, and that's why the court felt satisfied that Oscar Pistorius's rights were not being infringed by the state not disclosing publicly what aspects of its investigation were still outstanding. I think the real cause for concern for him was that the defense be aware of what aspects still had to be finalized before this docket is eventually handed over to them in August.
Okay, so Karyn, you also alluded to the fact that, you know, one of the things that could be outstanding is the likes of forensic investigation. Is that sort of the likely issue that is playing out right now as to why there needs to be a postponement until mid-August?
We understand that the forensic reports are in fact completed. They have been completed for quite some time. The blood spatter report, the autopsy was completed within days of Reeva Steenkamp's death, if not on the day. The real issue here is witness statements. We know that the state has focused its attention very much on the relationship between Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp. They want to speak to people who knew the couple, and primarily many people who knew her, to find out what issues, if any, she raised. So really that is the focal point of the investigation. We know that the investigating officer spent a great deal of his time re-examining witnesses at the crime scene, of course, which was Silverwood's estate, not being content to rely on the statements gathered by former investigating officer Hilton Botha, who, of course, left this case under a cloud, and going back to the scene and re-getting those statements, if that's not the correct word. But basically, that's been the primary focus of his investigation. He's now moved broader, and he seems to be investigating a number of people who were friends and associated with the couple about the dynamics of their relationship.
Okay, so Karyn, also give me a sense of the state of Oscar Pistorius, and this is quite scary because the 19th of August is actually Reeva Steenkamp's birthday as well. So it's just one piece of drama after the other at this point, Karyn.
Well, we know that his family and friends were very concerned about the intense pressure that would be applied on him when he appeared in court today. Remember that today is not his bail application. He doesn't have the protection of the police. He had to walk in and out of this courtroom in the full glare of the media spotlight, which he managed to do. We know that the family was attempting at one stage, because of obvious security concerns, given the nature of threats that have played themselves out over forums like Twitter, Facebook, etc. They did inquire as to the possibility of him being able to go through a less public entrance, and that seemed to have been granted, but was taken away at the last minute. So he did come in through the front door in the full glare of the media, but he seemed very composed. He chatted with his sister Amy, he passed her something, he was clean shaven, looked straight ahead of him, clearly addressed the court, and was clearly trying to manage his emotions in what are obviously quite difficult and stressful circumstances. Reeva Steenkamp's family were not in court today. They are still in PE, but we do understand that they are following via social media and through news reports as to what is happening.
All right, Karyn, thank you very much for that update. As you can see, Karyn Maughan outside the Pretoria Magistrates Court, where Oscar Pistorius has just left, and court adjourned until the 19th of August, giving time for the prosecution to put the last pieces of the investigation together. And it seems the defense pretty happy with this request as well. Let's now move on to other stories making headlines.
News that moves. eNCA.com.